Dr. Thalren stood in his laboratory on Station Viridian, his crystalline body reflecting the soft blue light from the medical displays around him. He had been a healer for 300 years. In that time, he had treated beings from every corner of the known galaxy. His hands, delicate and transparent like glass, had mended broken Centauri bones, soothed fevered Draxian minds, and cured Velian blood poisoning that would have killed lesser doctors. The walls of his office were lined with certificates and awards. 47 medical texts bore his name as author. Students from 100 worlds came to learn from him. When other doctors faced impossible cases, they called Thalren. He had never lost his calm. He had never shown fear in the face of any illness or injury. Today was supposed to be like any other day. Thalren was reviewing patient files when the emergency alert sounded. The sharp tone made his crystalline form vibrate slightly. He touched the communication panel on his desk. "This is Dr. Thalren," he said. His voice was soft, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Doctor, we have a distress call from the colony ship New Sol," the station coordinator said. "They had a reactor malfunction. Multiple casualties. They're requesting immediate medical assistance." Thalren accessed the ship's information. The New Sol was a human vessel. Humans. He had heard of them. Of course. They had joined the galactic community only 30 years ago. Young species, still learning the ways of interstellar travel. He had never treated a human before. "I will lead the medical team," Thalren said without hesitation. A healer's duty was clear. Species did not matter. Pain was universal. "Are you sure, Doctor? We could send Dr. Mira instead. She has more experience with carbon-based life forms. I have treated 3,847 different species." Thalren replied. "I am certain I can manage one more." Thalren. He gathered his medical equipment and assembled a team. 2 nurses, both Velians with their 4 arms, perfect for surgical assistance. 1 medical drone operator. And himself. They boarded a medical shuttle and launched toward the damaged colony ship. During the flight, Thalren reviewed everything the galactic database contained about human biology. Bipedal. Like many species. Carbon-based. Oxygen breathers. Standard body temperature of 37 degrees. Internal skeleton. Single heart, 2 lungs. Nothing unusual. Nothing concerning. The database noted that humans had only recently developed faster than light travel. Their home planet, Earth, was located in a distant spiral arm of the galaxy. They were considered friendly and cooperative by most diplomatic standards. Their ships were functional, but not particularly advanced. Thalren felt confident. This would be a routine medical emergency. The New Sol appeared on their view screen. The colony ship was large, designed to carry 500 humans to a new world. Scorch marks blackened its hull, where the reactor had vented excess heat, but the ship was intact. Life support was functioning. Good signs. They docked with the ship's medical bay. The airlock opened with a hiss. The smell hit Thalren first. Organic, warm, different from any species he had encountered. The medical bay was chaos. Injured humans lay on beds and on the floor. Their skin came in various shades of brown and pink. They had hair on their heads in different colors. Some were crying. Some were silent. Medical staff in stained uniforms rushed between patients. A human woman approached them. She was small, barely reaching Thalren's chest. Her dark hair was pulled back from her face. She wore a medical uniform with a name tag that read, "Dr. Suji, thank the stars you're here," she said. Her voice was rough with exhaustion. "We have 32 injured. 6 critical. We're overwhelmed." "Show me the critical patients first," Thalren said. Dr. Suji led them through the medical bay. Thalren's team began setting up equipment. The Velian nurses moved to assist the human medical staff. Everything was proceeding normally. Thalren's now, the seating Taljan. Then Dr. Suji stopped beside a bed. This is Jiho. He's one of our engineers. He was closest to the reactor when it failed. Burns on 40% of his body. Possible internal injuries. Thalren looked down at the young human man on the bed. Jiho's skin was red and blistered. His eyes were closed. His breathing was shallow. Standard trauma case. Thalren had treated thousands like this. I will begin diagnostic scan, Thalren said. He extended his sensory field. This was the gift of his species. Vashans could detect biorhythms, energy flows, cellular activity. It was what made them exceptional healers. Thalren could sense the inside of a body as clearly as others could see the outside. His sensory field touched Jiho, and Thalren heard it. Thud, 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 thud. The heartbeat hit him like a physical blow. It was not just sound. It was force, power, violence. Each beat was a hammer, striking an anvil. Each pulse was a war drum echoing in the darkness. The rhythm was steady but so strong it made Thalren's crystalline form resonate painfully. He stumbled backward, breaking contact. Doctor? Dr. Suji looked at him with concern. Are you all right? Are you all right? Thalren tried to speak but no words came. His body was vibrating, still resonating from that terrible rhythm. In 300 years of medicine, he had never felt anything like this. The heartbeat had not been irregular. It had not been diseased. It was functioning perfectly normally. That was what terrified him. I need a moment, Thalren managed to say. He moved away from the bed, trying to calm himself. His team looked confused. The Velian nurses exchanged glances. They had never seen their teacher shaken. Thalren forced himself to think logically. He was a scientist, a healer. Fear had no place in his work. He accessed his medical scanner and reviewed Jiho's readings from a distance. Heart rate, 72 beats per minute. According to the database, this was normal for a resting human. Blood pressure, normal. Cardiac output, normal. Everything was normal. So why had it felt like standing next to an explosion? He watched Dr. Suji check Jiho's vital signs. She placed her hand on his wrist, presumably feeling his pulse. She showed no fear, no concern about the violent rhythm Thalren had sensed. To her, this was ordinary. Dr. Thalren, one of the Velian nurses called. We need your expertise on this patient. Duty called. Thalren pushed his confusion aside. He moved to the next patient, carefully avoiding direct sensory contact with their heart. He could scan other systems. Bones, organs, nerve damage. He treated burns and set fractures. He stabilized 6 critical patients and assisted with 24 more, but he did not use his sensory field on their hearts again. Hours passed. The medical emergency was contained. All critical patients were stable. The human medical staff thanked Thalren and his team repeatedly. Doctor, Suji shook his hand. A human gesture he had learned meant gratitude. You saved lives today, she said. We can't thank you enough. Thalren nodded politely. But inside, confusion swirled like a storm. On the shuttle back to Station Viridian, his team was quiet. Finally, one of the Velian nurses spoke. Doctor, may I ask a question? Of course. Why did you not perform deep scans on the human patients? You always use your sensory field for accurate diagnosis. End quote. Thalren was silent for a long moment. How could he explain what he had experienced? How could he put into words the primal terror that had gripped him when he sensed that heartbeat? Human biology requires further study, he said finally. I did not want to risk misdiagnosis. It was not a lie. But it was not the full truth. Back in his laboratory, alone, Thalren pulled up every file the Galactic database had on human cardiovascular systems. He read for hours. The technical data was simple enough. 1 heart, 4 chambers, 60 to 100 beats per minute at rest. But the data did not explain what he had felt. That rhythm. That relentless, thunderous rhythm. It had not been the beat of a muscle pumping blood. It had been something else. Something ancient. Something that whispered of violence and survival, and a refusal to stop. For the first time in 300 years, Dr. Thalren was afraid of a patient, and he did not understand why. 3 days passed since the rescue mission. Thalren could not stop thinking about the human heartbeat. He tried to focus on his regular patients, but his mind kept returning to that violent rhythm. During surgeries, he found himself distracted. During consultations, he lost his train of thought. His colleagues began to notice. "You seem troubled," Dr. Mira said one afternoon. She was a centauri, with pale blue skin and large eyes that could sense emotions. "Is something wrong?" Thalren stood at his office window, looking out at the stars beyond the station. "Have you ever treated humans?" he asked. "A few times." "Why?" "Their hearts." Dr. Mira tilted her head. "They have single hearts, like many species. 4-chambered. Fairly efficient design. What troubles you about them?" Thalren turned to face her. "When I scanned the human patient, I felt something. Something I cannot explain. The heartbeat was normal according to all data, but it felt wrong. Violent." Dr. Mira was quiet for a moment. As an empath, she could sense that Thalren was genuinely disturbed. "Perhaps you should research them more thoroughly. Understanding often dissolves fear." So Thalren began to research. He spent every free moment studying human biology. The Galactic database had basic information, but Thalren wanted more. He accessed Earth's own medical libraries, translated into Galactic Standard. He read human anatomy texts. He watched recordings of human surgeries. He studied diagrams of their cardiovascular system. What he found did not comfort him. The human heart beat 60 to 100 times per minute at rest. That was faster than most intelligent species. The Vossians had no heart at all. Just energy flows through their crystal matrix. The Centauri had hearts that beat 40 times per minute. The Draxians, 30. Even the Velians, known for their physical activity, had hearts that beat only 50 times per minute. But humans? Their hearts raced even when they were calm. And during physical activity or stress, human hearts could beat over 200 times per minute. 200. The number seemed impossible. Dangerous. Thalren found studies of human athletic performance. He watched videos of humans running for hours without stopping. He saw records of humans climbing mountains, swimming across oceans, crossing deserts on foot. They called it endurance sports. One article mentioned something called persistence hunting. Thalren read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. Before humans developed advanced tools, they hunted by chasing animals until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. A human could run for hours, even days, tracking prey that was faster but could not maintain speed as long. The prey would run, rest, run again. But the human would just keep coming. Never stopping, never resting, just following with that terrible steady rhythm until the animal's body gave out. Thalren felt his crystalline form vibrate with discomfort. What kind of species hunted by simply refusing to stop? He needed to talk to a human who could explain this. There was a human on Station Viridian, an anthropologist named Suji, who had been living there for 2 years, studying galactic cultures. Thalren sent her a message requesting a meeting. She arrived at his office the next day. She was the same human doctor from the New Soul, he realized. She smiled when she saw him. "Dr. Thalren, good to see you again." "I want to understand humans better," Thalren said. "Your biology, your evolution." Suji sat down, looking curious. "That's unusual. Most alien species don't care much about our evolutionary history. What specifically interests you?" "Number. Your hearts," Thalren said. "And your endurance. I have been reading about persistence hunting. Suji's expression changed to understanding. Ah, you want to know why we're built the way we are? Yes. She leaned back in her chair. Humans evolved on a planet with many predators. Big cats, wolves, bears. They were all stronger than us, faster than us, better weapons with claws and teeth. So how did your species survive? We outlasted them, Suji said simply. We couldn't outrun a lion in a sprint, but we could run for longer than any animal on our planet. We would chase prey for hours. The animal would sprint away, tire, rest. Sprint away, tire, rest. But we would just keep jogging along behind it. Hour after hour. Eventually, the animal would be so exhausted it couldn't run anymore. Thalrin felt that uncomfortable vibration again. That seems cruel. It was survival, Suji said. Our ancestors didn't have the luxury of moral debates about hunting methods. They needed food. They used the one advantage they had: endurance. And your hearts? They beat so fast. They have to. Suji explained. To keep us moving for hours. Our hearts pump oxygen-rich blood constantly. No rest. No pause. Just continuous operation. A human heart will beat over 2.5 billion times in an average lifetime. It starts before we're born and stops only when we die. 2.5 billion times. The number was staggering. Do you not have rest periods? Thalrin asked. Built-in pauses? No. Our hearts beat every second of every day, even when we sleep. Thalrin was silent. His species had no equivalent. The Vossians were essentially immortal, their energy flowing through crystal, without need for a pumping organ. The idea of something working continuously for an entire lifetime, never stopping, never resting, seemed impossible. And exhausting. Does this disturb you? Suji asked gently. Yes. Thalrin admitted. When I scanned the human patient on your ship, I felt the heartbeat. It was violent, relentless, like a war drum. Suji smiled sadly. That's what keeps us alive. That war drum, as you call it. Without it, we die in minutes. They talked for another hour. Suji explained more about human evolution, about Earth's harsh environments, about the development of human civilization. The more Thalrin learned, the more disturbed he became. Humans were not apex predators. They were persistence predators. Not the strongest or fastest, but the ones who simply refused to stop. Over the next week, Thalrin continued his research. He observed the humans working on Station Viridian. There were about 30 of them, doing various jobs: scientists, engineers, diplomats. He noticed things he had never paid attention to before. A human technician named Daeun worked 12-hour shifts without complaint. When Thalrin asked if she needed rest, she laughed. A human security officer named Minho jogged through the station corridors every morning. For exercise, he said. He ran for an hour straight. Other species watched him with confusion. Who ran when nothing was chasing them? But what really struck Thalrin was how unaware humans seemed of their own unusual nature. They thought they were normal, average, just another species. They had no idea that 98% of galactic species could not match their endurance. Then came the viral outbreak. A ship arrived at the station carrying a passenger infected with Nexian flu. The disease spread quickly through the station's ventilation system. Within 2 days, dozens of beings were sick. The medical staff was overwhelmed. Thalrin worked around the clock treating patients. The flu affected different species in different ways. Centauri developed respiratory distress. Draxians suffered neural inflammation. Velians experienced system-wide pain. But the humans did not get sick. Not one human on the entire station showed symptoms. Dr. Mira called an emergency medical meeting. We need to understand why humans are immune. It might help us develop a cure. One. A human doctor named Junho volunteered to be studied. Whatever helps, he said. The medical team ran tests. Thalren coordinated the research while treating the sick. Days blurred together. 40 hours passed without rest. 60 hours. 80. Thalren had to stop several times to enter a rest state, letting his crystalline structure rejuvenate. Dr. Mira meditated to restore her mental energy. The Velian nurses worked in shifts, but the humans just kept working. Thalren watched in growing horror as Junho worked for 40 straight hours. No sleep. Minimal food. Just continuous focus on finding a cure. His eyes grew red. His movements became slower, but he did not stop. "You need to rest," Thalren finally said. "I will," Junho replied. "After we solve this." Thalren used his scanner to check Junho's vital signs without asking. The human's heart was beating steadily at 90 beats per minute. Elevated from rest, but not dangerously so. His body was running on reserves, on stress hormones, on sheer determination. That heartbeat, that relentless drumming. It was the sound of a species that did not know how to quit. 3 days into the outbreak, they found the cure. A combination of antiviral compounds that worked across multiple species. The sick began to recover. Junho finally went to sleep. He slept for 16 hours straight. When he woke up, his heart rate was back to normal. He ate a meal, then returned to work. Thalren found him in the research lab, reviewing data. "How do you do it?" Thalren asked. "Do what?" "Keep going. Your body should have collapsed. Any other species would have stopped." Junho looked at him with tired eyes. "We're used to it, I guess. Humans have always had to push through hard times. It's in our nature." That word again, nature. Thalren returned to his office and sat in the darkness. He understood now what he had felt when he first scanned Jiho. That violent heartbeat was not a malfunction. It was not a disease. It was the sound of a species built to endure, a species that would chase prey until it collapsed. That would work until the job was done. That would keep going when any rational being would stop. And for the first time, Thalren wondered what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of species that did not share that relentless drive. He was afraid. But now his fear had a name. He was afraid of their refusal to quit. The outbreak was over. The station returned to normal operations. But Thalren could not return to normal. The fear that had started as a tremor had grown into something he could no longer ignore. He needed to face it directly. He sent a message to Junho asking for a private meeting. The human doctor arrived at Thalren's laboratory the next morning. He looked well-rested now, his eyes clear. He smiled when he entered. Humans smiled often. Thalren had noticed. It was their way of showing friendliness. "What can I do for you, Dr. Thalren?" Junho asked. Thalren gestured to his medical scanner. "I would like to perform a deep scan of your cardiovascular system. For research purposes." Junho looked curious but not concerned. "Sure. Any particular reason?" "I am trying to understand human biology better," Thalren said. It was true, though not the complete truth. "All right." Junho lay down on the examination table. "Do whatever you need." Thalren activated his most sensitive equipment. He was going to do this properly this time. No running away. No avoiding the truth. He needed to understand what he was sensing. He extended his sensory field slowly, carefully. First, he scanned Junho's skeletal structure. Normal. Then his nervous system. Normal. Then his respiratory system. Normal. Finally, he reached the heart. Thud thud. Thud thud. Thud thud. The rhythm hit him again, but this time Thalren did not pull back. He forced himself to maintain contact, to truly sense what he was experiencing. His crystalline form vibrated in resonance with each beat. The sensation was overwhelming, but he held steady. The human heart was a muscle, yes. But it was more than that. It was a machine of terrifying efficiency. 4 chambers working in perfect coordination. Valves opening and closing 70 times every minute. Blood rushing through arteries with each contraction. Thalren mapped the entire cardiovascular system, arteries branching like rivers, veins carrying blood back to the heart, capillaries so small they could barely be seen, all of it working continuously, endlessly, without pause. He ran calculations as he scanned. In 1 minute, Junho's heart beat 70 times. In 1 hour, 4,200 times. In 1 day, over 100,000 times. In 1 year, over 37 million times. In an average human lifetime of 80 years, the heart would beat over 2.5 billion times. 2.5 billion beats. No rest. No pause. From birth until death. Thalren finally withdrew his sensory field. He was shaking. Junho sat up, looking concerned. "Are you okay?" the human asked. "I am fine," Thalren said, though it was not true. "Thank you for allowing me to scan you." "Oh, did you find what you were looking for?" "Yes," Thalren said quietly. "And no." After Junho left, Thalren sat alone in his laboratory. He now had complete data on the human cardiovascular system. He understood how it worked mechanically, but the why still troubled him. Why would evolution create an organ that never rested? Most species had hearts with built-in pause mechanisms, brief moments between beats where the muscle could recover. But human hearts had no such design. They contracted and relaxed continuously, but there was no true rest. It seemed cruel. He called Dr. Mira to his office. When she arrived, he showed her all his data. "Look at this," he said, highlighting the heart rate data. "Continuous operation for an entire lifetime. No rest periods. No backup system. If the heart stops for more than a few minutes, the human dies." Dr. Mira studied the data. "Many species have similar vulnerabilities, but not like this," Thalren insisted. "This is relentless. It is as if their entire physiology is built around the concept of never stopping. And this disturbs you." "Yes, because I have realized what I am sensing when I scan them. Every heartbeat is a countdown to death. They are dying from the moment they are born, and their hearts just beat faster." In response, Dr. Mira looked at him with her large, empathic eyes. "Is that not true of all mortal species?" "No," Thalren said firmly. "Most species accept mortality. Their biology reflects a peaceful progression through life. But humans? They race against death. Every heartbeat is defiance." "You say that as if it is a bad thing." Thalren was quiet. He did not know how to explain the fear he felt. It was not rational. He knew that. But it was real. The next day, a human woman named Heijin requested to meet with him. She was a philosopher who taught at the station's educational center. Word had apparently spread that Thalren was studying human biology. "Dr. Suji told me about your research," Heijin said when she arrived. "I am trying to understand it," Thalren said. Heijin smiled. "Humans have been trying to understand our mortality for thousands of years. We have written books, created art, composed music, all trying to make sense of the fact that we die. Does it not terrify you?" "Of course it does. But it also gives life meaning." Thalren tilted his head. "I do not understand." Heijin sat down. "Imagine you had infinite time. Every task could be delayed. Every experience could be had eventually. Every relationship could last forever. What would be urgent? What would be precious?" "I am essentially immortal," Thalren said. "And I find many things precious." "Do you?" Heijin asked gently. "Or do you find many things interesting? There is a difference." The question struck Thalren deeply. He thought about his 300 years of life. He had learned much, achieved much. But had anything felt urgent? Had he ever felt the desperate need to do something before time ran out? No. "Our hearts beat fast because we are always running out of time," Heijin continued. "Every moment that passes is gone forever. We cannot get it back. So we have to choose how to spend our time carefully." We have to decide what matters. That sounds exhausting. It is. But it is also what makes us human. We create art because we know we will die. We build relationships because we know they will end. We pursue dreams because we might not have tomorrow. Art. Thalren thought about the humans he had observed. Dayun, working long shifts. Minho, running every morning. Junho, staying awake for 40 hours to find a cure. You push yourselves so hard, he said, beyond what is safe, beyond what is reasonable. Because we have to. Heijin said, we do not have the luxury of infinite time. If we want to achieve something, we have to do it now. If we want to help someone, we have to do it today. Our hearts keep beating to remind us that the clock is always running. And you do not resent this? You do not wish for immortality? Heijin considered the question. Some humans do. We have stories about people seeking eternal life. But in those stories, immortality is usually portrayed as a curse, not a blessing. She stood up to leave, then paused at the door. Your fear of our heartbeat is not really about the rhythm, Dr. Thalren. It is about what the rhythm represents. Mortality. Urgency. The knowledge that time is limited. After she left, Thalren sat in the darkness of his office for a long time. He replayed the sound of Junho's heartbeat in his memory. Thud thud. Thud thud. Thud thud. That relentless, driving rhythm. For the first time, he tried to truly understand what he was hearing. Not just the mechanical function of a muscle pumping blood, but the meaning behind it. Each beat was a moment passing. Each beat was time slipping away. Each beat was a reminder that this human had limited heartbeats remaining in their life, and yet they did not despair. They did not hide from their mortality. They ran toward it, hearts beating fast, trying to accomplish as much as they could before the final beat arrived. Thalren thought about his own existence. 300 years without a heartbeat. 300 years of steady, unchanging energy flowing through crystal. No countdown. No urgency. Just endless time stretching ahead. He had never felt the pressure of a deadline. He had never worked through exhaustion because tomorrow might not come. He had never pushed his body beyond its limits because something mattered more than safety. He had lived for 300 years. But, had he ever truly felt alive? The humans lived for less than a century. But in that brief time, they burned so brightly. They created, they struggled, they loved, they fought. All while that heartbeat counted down the seconds they had left. Thalren finally understood his fear. He was not afraid of the heartbeat's power. He was not afraid of human endurance. He was not even afraid of their mortality. He was afraid because he did not have what they had. Purpose driven by urgency. Meaning created by limitation. The fierce, desperate desire to make their brief time matter. His fear was envy in disguise. The Vossians, in their crystalline immortality, had never had to race against time. They never felt the pressure of a ticking clock. They never knew what it meant to have something be now or never. And in that realization, Thalren felt something he had never experienced before. Emptiness. He had lived for 300 years. He would likely live for 300 more. But what had he done with that time? That truly mattered. What had he created that came from a desperate need to leave something behind before time ran out? Nothing. He had been a healer because it was interesting. He had written books because he had time to fill. He had treated thousands of patients because they kept arriving at his door. But he had never felt the fierce urgency he saw in Junho's eyes when they searched for a cure during the outbreak. He had never felt the driving need Daeun showed when she worked those long shifts. He had never felt the relentless determination that made Minho run every morning. Because he had forever. And forever meant nothing had to be done today. Thalren looked at his hands. Crystal and light. Beautiful and eternal. But cold. Always cold. He thought of Junho's warm hand shaking his during the outbreak. The heat of human flesh. the warmth of blood, pumped by that relentless heart. The humans were dying with every heartbeat, but they were so much more alive than he had ever been. 2 weeks after his revelation, Thalren was in his laboratory when the emergency alert sounded again. The sharp tone made his crystalline form vibrate, but this time, he did not hesitate. He touched the communication panel immediately. "This is Dr. Thalren. Medical emergency at Asteroid Mining Facility 773. Structural collapse. Multiple species trapped. We are assembling a rescue team. Your expertise is requested. I will join immediately." Thalren gathered his emergency medical equipment. As he headed to the shuttle bay, he saw others gathering. Dr. Mira was there, several Velian emergency workers, and 3 humans. One of them was Minho, the security officer who ran every morning. Another was a woman named Yuna, a shuttle pilot. The third was a young man Thalren did not recognize. "Dr. Thalren," Minho said with a nod. "Good to have you on the team." They boarded the rescue shuttle. Yuna took the pilot's seat. The journey to the asteroid would take 2 hours. During the flight, the team leader briefed them on the situation. Mining facility suffered catastrophic structural failure. Main support tunnel collapsed. 23 workers trapped in a sealed chamber. Multiple species. Oxygen supply limited to approximately 6 hours from now. 6 hours. Not much time. Thalren noticed something as the briefing continued. His scanner showed elevated heart rates from the human team members. Minho's heart was beating at 120 beats per minute. Yuna's was at 130. They were preparing for action. Their bodies were already accelerating. The other species on the rescue team showed signs of stress too. But differently, Dr. Mira's empathic field was fluctuating. The Velian workers were breathing faster, but the humans were doing something else. They were not just reacting to stress, they were transforming it into readiness. Thalren found himself watching Minho's hands. They were steady despite the elevated heart rate. Checking equipment. Adjusting straps. Preparing methodically for what was ahead. "Have you done this before?" Thalren asked quietly. "Rescue operations?" "Yeah, a few times," Minho replied. "It's part of emergency response training for humans. We're good at getting people out of tight situations." "You are not afraid?" Minho looked at him with dark eyes. "Of course I'm afraid. But that's what the training is for. You learn to use the fear. Let it sharpen your focus, instead of clouding it." The shuttle arrived at the asteroid. The mining facility was a series of tunnels carved into the rock. Yuna landed near the emergency access point. The team disembarked quickly. The facility manager, a Draxian with scales and 4 arms, met them at the entrance. "Thank the stars you are here. The main tunnel collapsed 3 hours ago. We have been unable to reach the trapped workers. The structure is unstable. More collapses are possible. Show us the safest route," Minho said. They descended into the facility. Thalren's crystalline form provided soft light in the dark tunnels. The walls were rough rock, supported by metal beams. Some of the beams were bent from the collapse. Dust hung in the air. Thalren monitored the humans as they moved deeper. Their heart rates climbed higher. Minho was at 140 beats per minute now. Yuna at 150, but their movements were controlled. Efficient. No wasted energy. They reached the collapse site. A massive pile of rock and twisted metal blocked the tunnel. Beyond it, somewhere in the darkness, were the trapped workers. Minho activated his communicator. "This is rescue team. Can anyone hear us?" A weak voice responded. "Yes. We can hear you. There are 23 of us. Air is getting thin. Hold on. We are coming for you." The team assessed the situation. The collapse was extensive. The heavy equipment they had brought could not fit in the narrow tunnel. Manual excavation would take too long. They needed another solution. Minho studied the collapsed area carefully. He pointed to a section where a massive support beam had fallen across the tunnel. "If we can lift that beam and shift it, we can create a gap." Big enough to pull people through one at a time. The Draxian facility manager looked doubtful. That beam weighs several tons. We do not have lifting equipment that can reach here. Then, we'll do it manually, Minho said. Thalren ran calculations in his mind. The beam was too heavy. Even with the entire team working together, the weight was impossible. The mathematics do not support this plan, he said. Minho looked at the other two humans. Yuna nodded. The third human, a young man, also nodded. We've done harder. Minho said simply. They positioned themselves around the beam. Minho explained the plan. They would use debris as leverage points. Time the lift together. Shift the beam slowly, rather than trying to lift it completely. Thalren watched as they prepared. He scanned their vital signs, without asking permission this time. He needed to understand what he was about to witness. Minho's heart rate, 160 beats per minute. Yuna's, 170. The third human, 180. They were not panicking. This was controlled acceleration. Their bodies were preparing for extreme physical exertion. On 3, Minho said. 1, 2, 3. They pushed. Thalren felt it through his sensory field, the sudden surge of effort. The human bodies flooding with adrenaline and other hormones. Their muscles straining. Their hearts beating faster and faster. 170 beats per minute. 180. 190. The beam shifted. Just slightly. A few centimeters. Again, Minho called. 1. Another push. The beam moved more. Thalren could see the strain on their faces. Veins standing out on their skin. Sweat forming despite the cool air. But they did not stop. The other rescue team members joined in. Dr. Mira, using her empathic abilities to coordinate their efforts. The Velian workers, adding their four-armed strength. Thalren positioned himself to guide the beam's movement, but it was the humans who provided the core force. That relentless, driving pressure that refused to accept that the task was impossible. 200 beats per minute. 210. Thalren had never seen anything like it. The human cardiovascular systems were operating at levels that would kill most species. But they were not failing. They were designed for this. This was what they had evolved for. Not sprinting, not quick bursts of speed, but sustained, grinding, relentless effort. The kind of effort that would break most beings. The beam shifted again. Kept moving, creating a gap. Then Yuna collapsed. Thalren was beside her instantly. He scanned her quickly. Heart rate 220 beats per minute. Approaching dangerous levels. Her body had pushed too far. I am fine, Yuna gasped. Keep going. You need to rest, Thalren said. Not yet. She tried to stand, but her legs would not support her. Minho glanced back. Yuna's down. Can she be stabilized? Thalren placed his hands on Yuna's chest. He extended his sensory field into her cardiovascular system. That terrible heartbeat was irregular now. Skipping. Straining. He could feel the exhaustion in the muscle tissue. But even now, even damaged, it kept beating. Kept trying. That was the terrifying part. The human heart would beat itself to destruction if the mind demanded it. Rest, Thalren commanded. He used his abilities to slow her heart rate, to ease the strain. You have done enough. Yuna nodded weakly. The others continued working. The gap widened. Finally, it was large enough. We have an opening. Minho called into the communicator. We are coming through. The rescue took another 3 hours. 23 workers pulled through the gap one by one. Some were injured. Thalren treated them as they emerged. Burns, broken bones, dehydration. All 23 survived. When the last worker was pulled free, Minho finally allowed himself to rest. He sat against the tunnel wall, breathing hard. His heart rate was slowly dropping. 190. 170. 150. Thalren approached him. You nearly killed yourself. But I did not, Minho said with a tired smile. And everyone got out alive. Your heart rate reached dangerous levels. Human hearts can take it. We are built for this kind of stress. Thalren sat beside him. His crystalline form was undamaged, but he felt exhausted in a way he had never experienced. Not physical exhaustion. Something else. Why do you do this? He asked. Why push so hard? Minho was quiet for a moment. Because people needed help. And we could provide it. That's enough reason. They sat in silence. Around them, the rescue team was helping the survivors to the surface. Dr. Mira was coordinating medical care. The Velian workers were clearing debris. Thalren listened to Minho's heartbeat slowly return to normal. 130. 120. 100. Even at rest, it was faster than most species. That relentless rhythm that never stopped. But now, Thalren heard something different in it. Not just violence. Not just refusal to quit. He heard determination. Purpose. The sound of someone who knew their time was limited and chose to spend it helping others. Yuna will be okay, right? Minho asked. Yes, she needs rest, but she will recover. Good. She is a good pilot. Thalren helped Minho stand. Together, they walked toward the surface. Behind them, the collapsed tunnel was silent. 23 beings were alive because the humans had refused to accept that lifting the beam was impossible. On the shuttle back to Station Viridian, Thalren treated the injured. Yuna was stable. The 3 humans who had moved the beam were exhausted, but recovering. Thalren found himself watching them with new eyes. They had pushed themselves to the edge of cardiac failure. They had strained their bodies beyond what should be survivable, and they acted like it was normal. This is just Tuesday for us, Minho had said. Maybe it was. Maybe this was what it meant to have a heartbeat that counted down your remaining time. You did not waste it. You did not hold back. You gave everything you had, because tomorrow was not guaranteed. Thalren looked at his crystalline hands. Beautiful. Eternal. Cold. He envied them their warmth. After the rescue, Thalren could not sleep. His species did not sleep the way others did, but they needed rest cycles. Periods where their crystalline structure could rejuvenate and process experiences. But Thalren found no rest. His thoughts kept returning to the rescue mission. He kept seeing Yuna collapse. Kept feeling her heart straining under impossible demand. Kept hearing Minho's calm voice saying, "This is just Tuesday for us." 2 days after the rescue, Minho visited him in the medical bay. The human looked tired, but healthy. His heart rate was back to normal levels. "How are you feeling?" Thalren asked. "Sore, but fine." "I did what any healer would do." Minho sat down in one of the chairs. "Can I ask you something, Dr. Thalren?" "Of course. Why have you been so interested in human biology, specifically our hearts?" Thalren was silent for a long moment. He had kept his fear private until now. But perhaps it was time to be honest. "Because they terrify me," he said quietly. Minho looked surprised. "Our hearts terrify you?" "Yes. From the first moment I scanned a human patient, I have been afraid of what I sensed. That relentless rhythm, that violent drumbeat that never stops. I did not understand it. Relation. And now? Now, I think I am afraid for different reasons." Minho leaned forward. "Tell me." So, Thalren explained. He talked about his research, about learning that humans evolved as persistence predators, about watching them work for 40 hours during the viral outbreak, about seeing them push their bodies to the breaking point during the rescue. "Your hearts will beat themselves to destruction if your minds demand it," Thalren said. "That is what terrifies me. Not the strength, but the refusal to acknowledge limits." "But we do acknowledge limits," Minho said. "We just choose to push past them when necessary." "Why?" "Because we do not have time to be careful," Minho said. "We have 70, maybe 80 years, if we are lucky. Every moment we waste being cautious is a moment gone forever. Thalren gestured to his medical displays. May I show you something? Sure. Thalren pulled up the scans he had taken of Junho's cardiovascular system weeks ago. This is a complete mapping of a human heart. I have studied it extensively. Minho looked at the three-dimensional image floating in the air. Looks normal to me. That is the problem. To you, this is normal. But compared to most species in the galaxy, this is extraordinary. Your heart beats faster than 98% of known sapient species. It operates continuously without rest periods. It can increase its output by 300% during stress, and it will do this for your entire life. Thalren highlighted different sections as he spoke. Most species have cardiovascular systems with built-in safety measures, rest phases, limitations. But human hearts have no off switch. They beat from before birth until death, over 2.5 billion times in an average lifetime. Minho was quiet, studying the image. I never thought about it that way. You do not think about it because it is normal to you. But it is not normal to the rest of the galaxy. Is that why you were afraid? Because we are different? Partially. But I think the real reason is deeper. Thalren brought up his own biological scans. This is Vossian physiology. We have no heart, just energy flowing through crystalline structure. No pumping organ, no blood, no rhythm. He placed the two images side by side, human and Vossian. So different. I live for centuries. Thalren continued. I do not age the way you do. I have no heartbeat counting down the seconds I have left. I have essentially infinite time. That sounds amazing, Minho said. Does it? I watched you during the rescue. Your heart was beating over 200 times per minute. You were destroying your body. But you did not stop. You could not stop, because people needed help, and you knew you might not have another chance. Thalren's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. I have never felt that urgency. I have never had to choose between my safety and helping others because tomorrow might not come. I have always had tomorrow. Understanding dawned in Minho's eyes. Your fear is not of our hearts. It is of not having one yourself. It is not our heart. Yes. They sat in silence for a while. Thalren had finally spoken the truth that had been growing inside him since that first terrifying encounter with Jiho's heartbeat. Can I tell you something? Minho asked. Please. You asked me on the asteroid why we do this. Why we push so hard. I said it was because people needed help. But there is more to it than that. Why you put. Minho stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars shone in the darkness of space. We know our hearts will stop one day, he said quietly. Every human knows this from the moment they understand what death means. Our hearts could stop tomorrow, or in 50 years. We do not know when. He turned back to Thalren. And that knowledge could paralyze us. We could spend our whole lives afraid, trying to protect our hearts, avoiding anything that might make them beat too fast. But you do not. No. Because we realized something important. Our hearts are going to stop eventually, no matter what we do. So we might as well use them while they are still beating. Minho placed his hand over his chest. Thalren extended his sensory field slightly and felt that familiar rhythm. Thud thud. Thud thud. Steady and strong. Every heartbeat is a choice, Minho said. A choice to keep going. To keep trying. To keep living. And when we push our hearts to their limits, helping others, we are choosing to make those beats count for something. Thalren felt something shift inside him. The fear was still there, but it was changing, transforming into something else. I envy you, he admitted. I have lived 300 years, and I have never felt that desperate need to make my time matter, because I always have more time. But you are here now, Minho pointed out. You joined the rescue mission. You saved Yuna. You have been helping people for 300 years. That counts for something, does it? I did those things because I had time, and they were interesting, not because I felt an urgent need to help before time ran out. Minho smiled. Maybe that is changing. Maybe understanding us is helping you understand yourself. Over the next weeks, Thalren continued his work with new awareness. He treated patients as he always had, but he found himself listening to heartbeats differently, not with fear, but with respect. He heard the Centauri hearts beating slowly and steadily, the Velian hearts with their rhythmic pauses, the Draxian hearts with their triple chambers, and the human hearts, beating fast and relentless, counting down the finite time their owners had left. One day, an emergency case arrived. A human child named Taeyeon. She was only 8 years old. Her parents brought her to the medical bay, both crying. Please help her, the mother begged. Her heart is not working right. Thalren scanned the child immediately. Her heartbeat was irregular, weak. One of the valves in her heart was malformed, a birth defect that had worsened over time. Her small heart was struggling to pump blood effectively. She needs surgery, Thalren said. The valve must be repaired. Can you do it? The father asked. Thalren looked at the little girl. She was so small. Her heart was even smaller. Delicate. Fragile. The surgery would be extremely difficult. 3 months ago, he would have referred this case to a specialist in human pediatric medicine. Too risky. Too frightening to work on that violent human heartbeat. But now, he understood what he was hearing in that small, struggling rhythm. Not violence. Not a countdown to death. A fight to live. Yes, Thalren said. I will do it. The surgery was scheduled for the next day. Thalren prepared carefully. He studied human pediatric cardiology all night. He consulted with Junho and other human doctors. He reviewed every technique he knew from 300 years of medicine. When the time came, he was ready. Taeyeon was put under anesthesia. Her small body looked so fragile on the operating table. Thalren extended his sensory field and listened to her heartbeat. Thud. 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 Irregular. Weak. But still fighting. Beginning surgery, Thalren said. His team assisted. Human surgical nurses who knew their species better than anyone. Dr. Mira monitoring vital signs. Thalren used his crystalline precision to make the incision. His 300 years of experience guided every movement. He reached the heart. It was so small in his hands. Smaller than his fist. But it was still beating, still trying. He made the repairs to the valve. Delicate work, precise stitching, careful manipulation of tissue that could tear if handled roughly. Hours passed. The surgery was complex, but Thalren did not rush. He worked with steady, careful precision. Finally, it was done. He stepped back and watched as Taeyeon's heart began to beat normally. Thud, 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 thud. Strong, steady, regular. That beautiful, relentless rhythm. Thalren felt something he had never experienced before. Pride, joy. A fierce gladness that this small heart would keep beating. That this child would have her 70 or 80 years to make her heartbeats count. Surgery successful, he announced. The human surgical nurses smiled. Dr. Mira's empathic field radiated relief. Taeyeon's parents, waiting outside, cried with joy when they received the news. Later, when Taeyeon woke up, she looked at Thalren with wondering eyes. "Did you fix my heart?" she asked in a small voice. "Yes," Thalren said gently. "It will work properly now. Thank you." Such simple words. But they carried weight. This child would live now. Her heart would beat billions of times. She would grow up, experience life, make her brief time matter in whatever way she chose. And Thalren had helped make that possible. Months passed. Thalren became known as one of the galaxy's leading experts on human cardiology. He wrote a new medical text about human cardiovascular systems. But unlike his other books, this one was different. It was not just technical data. It explored the meaning behind the biology. He titled it, The Drumbeat Species: Understanding Human Cardiovascular Tenacity. The book became required reading at medical schools across the galaxy. Not just for the medical information, but for the philosophical insights. Thalren had written about what it meant to have a heart that counted down your finite time, about the strength that came from knowing every beat was precious. One evening, Thalren stood in the observation deck of Station Viridian. The stars stretched out before him, endless and eternal. Beside him stood Suji, the human anthropologist he had first interviewed months ago. "I heard your book is very popular," she said. "It seems many species find the human perspective on mortality interesting." "Did you ever overcome your fear?" Suji asked. Thalren was quiet for a moment. He extended his sensory field slightly and felt Suji's heartbeat. Thud, thud. Thud, thud. Thud, thud. That familiar rhythm that had once terrified him. "No," he admitted. "The fear is still there, but I understand it now." "And what do you understand?" "Your hearts beat like you are always running out of time because you are. Every species is running out of time eventually. But most of us have so much time that we forget this truth. We waste our moments. We delay our dreams. We assume we will always have tomorrow." He turned to look at Suji. "But humans cannot forget. Your hearts remind you with every beat. Every moment is precious. Every day is borrowed time. And instead of despairing, you turned that knowledge into strength." Suji smiled. "Every heartbeat is a choice to keep going." "Yes. And that is what I feared most. Not the heartbeat itself, but what it represented. The urgency I had never felt. The fierce determination to make finite time matter. The refusal to waste a single moment. And now I am trying to learn from you. I am 300 years old. I will likely live 300 more. But I am starting to understand that time only matters if we choose to make it matter. Whether we have decades or centuries, the principle is the same." They stood together watching the stars. Thalren felt Suji's heartbeat in his sensory field. That relentless drumming that never stopped. That countdown to an eventual ending. But he no longer heard it as a war drum. He heard it as a victory song. A species that knew it would die and chose to live fiercely anyway. A species that turned mortality into meaning. A species that understood that every heartbeat was precious, precisely because there were only so many left. "May your hearts beat for 1,000 years more," Thalren said softly. Suji placed her hand over her chest. "That's a nice thought. But we would not want that." "No? No. Because then we would become like every other species, with infinite time. We would lose what makes us human. The urgency. The passion. The desperate, beautiful fight to make our brief time matter." She smiled at him. 70 or 80 years is enough, if we use them right. Lo. Thalren's crystalline form chimed softly in the quiet observation deck. He had learned so much from these strange creatures with their violent, relentless hearts. He had learned about mortality and meaning, about fear and understanding, about the value of finite time, and perhaps most importantly, he had learned that having infinite time meant nothing if you did not have the urgency to use it. From that day forward, Thalren worked differently. He still had his calm demeanor and his steady hands. But inside, something had changed. He no longer worked because he had time and patience were interesting. He worked because beings needed help. Because every patient deserved to have more heartbeats, more moments, more chances to make their time matter. Whether they had a heart that beat or energy that flowed through crystal, every being deserved to live fully. And when he listened to human heartbeats now, He did not hear something to fear. He heard something to protect. That beautiful, terrifying, relentless drumbeat that counted down finite time while simultaneously celebrating every moment of being alive. Thud thud. Thud thud. Thud thud. The sound of humanity refusing to go quietly into the dark. The sound of life itself.